Mineplex is one of the most famous servers in Minecraft history, globally recognized by many and for quite some time being the biggest Minecraft server in the world, even getting a world record for such. The server's abrupt and completely unannounced shutdown 3 years ago in May 2023 shocked the entire Minecraft community. What was even more shocking though was when the server was bought and set to reopen not long after shutting down, but then after 3 years went up and down, never properly reopening. And recently, in an even more shocking revelation, the server was sold again and has actually reopened for good this time. Astonishingly, seeing player counts the server hasn't seen in a decade. But what happened to the server during that 3 years, and why did it never properly reopen? How did Microsoft's negligence almost result in its death, and why was the server sold again? And will Mineplex actually survive this time around, or will the cycle repeat and will it suffer a slow and painful death once again?
If this happens to Mineplex, and this is how Mojang treated us, there is no way anybody else is getting on that featured server list.
But hold on a minute, what even happened to the original Mineplex? Well, throughout the early 2020s, Mineplex began seeing a huge decline in popularity, losing as high as 99% of its player base, and by 2023, prior to shutting down, was rarely seeing above 100 players online, if even that. The server's decline has been documented and discussed many times, by myself included, and can be largely attributed to a combination of factors. A lack of promotion and advertising once YouTubers no longer uploaded videos playing the server through their content, as the YouTube meta shifted away from Let's Play style videos. A lack of significant updates to game modes due to an absence of development and developers, of which gained Mineplex its reputation for being laggy, having lots of bugs and issues, and being full of hackers. A failure to innovate on new minigames and game modes, which is what made Mineplex so popular in the first place, leading the server to become outdated, and just all around neglect from the server's ownership at the time. As for why the server was so neglected, well, we won't ever know for sure, as the original owners never made any statements, but it was theorized that it was due to changes to the Minecraft EULA throughout the mid-2010s, resulting in Mineplex's revenue being cut to about 20% of original profits, as well as the owners deciding to focus on other projects and businesses. Regardless of the how or why, the server in early 2023 was a shell of its former self, but still had a small and active community of players and a lower level staff who played daily. Then in May of 2023, the server would abruptly go down out of the blue. But first, do you like letting out the stresses of a long day by driving around in a formidable tank? Just me? Well, that's fine, as you better check out this video sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is a massive scale, free-to-play multiplayer action game where you take part in gigantic battles and fights around the world using a variety of different ground vehicles, warships, and aircrafts. War Thunder is fantastic at capturing the atmosphere of proper full-scale battles, with the detail of all equipment and vehicles really making you feel like you are right there in the action. The actual graphics and sound in War Thunder are really high quality and always improving too, making the game and its huge battles feel even more immersive. One cool thing about War Thunder is that you can play the way you want. You can use a huge variety of vehicles, whether you prefer breaking through the front lines on a tank, covering ground vehicles from a helicopter or plane, or using advanced military technologies like guided missiles and night vision devices to attack from range. War Thunder recently had a big update called the Ninth Wave, where a unique branch of Hungarian aviation has been added to the game. They also added new fighter jets, such as the American F-16C Block 52 and the Soviet MiG-29M, even improving water graphics. Waves have never looked this good. Download War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox by using the link in the description. All new players and those who haven't played War Thunder for half a year or more will receive some special bonuses, 100,000 Silver Lions, a special Decorator Eagle of Valor, and more. You can also fully immerse yourself in the exciting battles in War Thunder Mobile, an epic mobile multiplayer action game. Download and play for free on iOS or Android using the link in the description. At the time, Mineplex was supposedly migrating to new infrastructure, so it had been going up and down somewhat regularly. Plus the fact that Mineplex's official Bedrock server was still seeing thousands of players online and was still running, meant that players weren't too concerned. However, when the server's last remaining dev mentioned it was totally out of his hands, and as the days continued passing, with even the Bedrock server going down, concern began to grow. That was until a staff member suddenly announced that the server would be permanently shutting down and would not come back online. No proper announcement or heads up from the owners, no final goodbye event, and no warning whatsoever. Just like that, one of the most beloved and famous Minecraft servers in history, only second to Hypixel, had just ended its operation for good. The community was hurt. Even the staff were upset that they didn't get the chance to give the server a proper send-off, wishing things could have gone differently. The server meant so much to so many people, kickstarting the careers of many content creators, developers and game designers, myself included, and to see it just disappear suddenly was heartbreaking. The staff would go on to say that they felt they were never respected, treated properly or communicated with, and the owners just decided they didn't want to pay for the server anymore one day, and that was it. There was also rumors that the reason this happened so suddenly was because the server was in a huge $40,000 debt to a hosting company, but that was never entirely confirmed. During the morning of the server, a ray of hope shone. The server shutdown generated a lot of buzz online, eventually getting the attention of a former server admin, now turned Overwatch streamer, Samito. Samito had close ties to the original Mineplex, even having an old YouTube channel with hundreds of Mineplex videos, and would upload a video on Twitter where he mentions this.
I'm just now reading the news on Mineplex, and allegedly the network is shut down. I started on Mineplex 11 years ago. My competitive gaming career started there. My game design started there. My YouTube started there, right? Here's what I have to say to the Mineplex leadership. I will find creators for you, or anything, to bring back a version of Mineplex Classic or something, a reset, or Mineplex 2.0, you name it, right? Because this network does not deserve to be nothing. Do not let this be how this legacy ends. It deserves better.
Then about 10 days later, he would announce on Twitter that he had just bought Mineplex and was planning to bring the server back. The community rejoiced. So many players, YouTubers and content creators, some of which weren't even in the Minecraft community, were excited at the fact that the server would be coming back, hopefully getting the proper care and treatment it rightfully deserved. For some, they viewed the server shutting down as a necessary evil to finally get rid of the original ownership who neglected the server so much. However, things wouldn't return to normal just yet. Samito obviously needed some time to organize things and get the server back and running again, and people understood that the server wouldn't exactly be switched on right away.
Java is a little bit away, right? I'm not gonna sit here and say, yeah, we're doing Java, we're doing all this stuff. So yeah, we're gonna have to wait on Java and see where things are at, because I don't want to just relaunch Java in the state it was. Like, the reality was it was dead, right? You know, nobody was really playing it. It didn't get updates for years. And if I'm going to relaunch it, it's got to be good. It's got to be quality, right? Like, Mineplex used to have this quality to it that was so good, and that quality really fell off. I'm not comfortable or okay with launching it like that.
And it made sense. Merely reopening the server as it was prior to shutting down didn't seem like the best idea. The server was very much inactive up to that point. Changes would need to be made to ensure that the server had a future. The other thing that Samito was dealing with was getting the Bedrock server back online. For a bit of additional context, the Bedrock server functioned differently to the Java one. It was a partnered server with Microsoft, meaning there were some special contractual agreements in place that needed to be re-established.
Unfortunately, like I said, right now, you know, we're still waiting to hear back from Microsoft, and that's number one, and getting Bedrock operational, because at the end of the day, this is a business, and we got to make sure that we get some cash flow going before we can really reinvest it right back into the company.
And as for the reason why the Bedrock server was such a priority, well, it was largely because it, unlike the Java server, was still active and seeing thousands of players online daily prior to closing down, being the Mineplex business's primary and main source of income. It made sense. If the server was going to go under major redevelopment, they would need to fund that, and the Bedrock server was the best method to do so. As such, players were understanding and still very excited, and Samito kept them updated on progress in the server's Discord. In mid-September, about 5 months after Samito acquired Mineplex, the network was finally ready for their big announcement on the server's future. That big announcement being that you should all subscribe to TheMisterEpic so we can reach 1 million subscribers by the end of the year. We are on the home stretch now, and it would be much appreciated, no pressure of course.
Minecraft is still the most popular game of all time. People love Minecraft content, but for some reason, many networks are struggling to stay afloat. We decided to take a step back as a company and chose to go in a different direction. What if the barrier to entry to develop and publish games in Minecraft were as low as the rest of the industry? What if I told you that development platform is well on its way in the form of the Mineplex Studio? We are so happy to give the community this development platform, and not only will you be able to develop games that are affordable, you'll be able to do it for as little as $15 a month. This is the most innovative development tool to ever come out in Minecraft. The big common theme that I've seen are people complaining about stagnation. There's no variety out there. There's nothing new, which is why we are no longer a game publishing studio. We are a technology company that focuses on providing infrastructure for you, the little guy at home that can't afford to do it, but loves games and wants to make games on the most accessible game of all time.
Now, you might be very confused as to what Samito's talking about here, and much of the Minecraft community was too, which was reflected in the live chat reaction to this announcement. But essentially, Samito's vision for the new Mineplex was no longer to be just a Minecraft server server with a bunch of minigames as it once was, but instead to be a Minecraft platform where any person or team could utilize Mineplex's studio they were developing to create their own game modes, minigames, and sub-servers within Mineplex as a whole. Basically, rather than primarily focusing on developing and hosting minigames themselves, Samito wanted to turn Mineplex into a network where dozens of players and groups created servers and minigames that would be hosted under them and the network's name, sort of like a bunch of small independent servers run by different individuals and teams, all being connected and accessible through the Mineplex main server. The concept was similar to Minehut, which is a Minecraft server which you can host and advertise your own server through, except Mineplex planned to better support the development side of things and offer players a whole suite of development tools to create the game modes, minigames, and servers they always dreamed of, but never had the resources or skills to do so. It was like a Minecraft version of Roblox, where the games are all player created using the tools and infrastructure which Roblox maintains themselves. They gave many of the server's most famous minigames, like Super Smash Mobs and Champions, to specific teams who would be responsible for developing and maintaining them.
Right, you don't see the big creators making YouTube videos anymore on Minecraft servers or minigames, right? But you see the big networks pushing out minigames. Well, now your favorite YouTubers not only can build it on the studio and not have to worry about any of the overhead, but they can publish it to their live audience. And we need your help. I'm never gonna ask this again because we want to give it all back to you, but we need you now. So go down in that subscription box or description box and support us, and we will give you the tools you need to chase a dream.
The goal with this new studio was not only to make Mineplex the revolutionary server it was once more, but also to better integrate with YouTube content and hopefully allow YouTubers to make videos promoting the server as they initially did, which is what led to the server's meteoric rise in the first place. This announcement came at quite a shock to the community, much of which just wanted to see Mineplex return as it was previously, but with a more dedicated team. And as such, some people weren't happy about this shift, just wanting to play the server they once fell in love with again. But the wider community seemed supportive and looked forward to the paid beta that would be releasing later that year, understanding that a longer wait for a completely revitalized and innovative server might overall lead to a more successful server into the future. As the months continued on and we enter late 2023, Samito continued sharing updates about the development in the main Mineplex Discord. The first beta had to be postponed unfortunately, but Samito would upload an update video in January 2024.
Mineplex is in a unique position here. Traditionally on Mineplex or Minecraft networks, you only had to worry about the player interest, right? But because we're pushing out a development platform as well as our network, right? We have to maintain player interest as well as developer interest too. So learning how to weigh the scales, because those aren't always aligned, and we didn't think it was fair to our developer interests to push out the beta first before we rolled out the development studio. Look, it's the right thing to do. We had to do it, and it'll come out when it's ready so that we can pick a date that really helps these developers out and doesn't stress them too much, because again, it's a balancing act that we're doing between player interest and developer interest.
The gist of the video was that Mineplex was not only balancing the player base's wants, but also the developers' wants, who would be using their studio and infrastructure to make a game modes and minigames, and they didn't believe everything would be ready to do a fair beta just yet. More months then passed. In August of 2024, the Mineplex alpha with a couple minigames would release, which went well. This was a very limited alpha though, with small groups of players and a small number of minigames. A few more months then passed, where in late October, the closed beta would finally go live, featuring slightly more minigames, a new updated hub, and also a special Halloween event game mode in tradition with the Halloween events the server used to do. This was the first time a large portion of the player base had a chance to play the server, and reception was a bit mixed.
Mineplex finally released its closed beta after a year of promises. They have a new hub, some new games, and... wait, is that it? Just a new lobby and a few games? My initial reaction was disappointment, as my expectations for the beta were much higher. The first game I tried was their Halloween mode. Compared to previous years, this Halloween game was by far the most disappointing.
As longtime members of the community would state in videos, they were a bit underwhelmed with what the server had released with. At this point, it had been a year and a half of waiting for many, and they just wanted to see the server completely back again. Not all was negative though, and some of the server's game modes like clans were basically entirely done and active.
Next, we have clans. From what I've played, it's pretty enjoyable if you know the game or champions. It's especially fun with friends.
The closed beta would then reopen again about 2 months later in December with a Christmas game mode that was better received. Entering 2025 now, and progress remained steady, with new game modes and new features on the network releasing in closed betas too. A final closed beta would release in May last year, now 2 years after Mineplex originally shut down, and and things once again seemed to go fine. But this time around, the issue was that the community was beginning to run out of patience. It wasn't like Samito or Mineplex were doing anything wrong, it's just that their goals for the server differed from what much of the community wanted. Samito was thinking more long term, while the community was thinking short term, just wanting the server back, identical to as it was when it shut down.
I get it, this is still just a closed beta and things might change before the open beta releases. MCC Island and Hoplite had amazing high quality closed betas that far surpass what Mineplex is offering now. So no, I don't think it's unfair to expect more from Mineplex. Almost 2 years ago, Samito announced he bought Mineplex, and only now are we getting close to an open beta. But what's being offered right now really doesn't feel like something that should have taken 2 years to make.
Regardless, progress once again continued throughout 2025, although in September, things seemed to go rather silent, and they remained that way for months. What was happening to the server? Was Mineplex going to shut down out of the blue again, this time before even fully releasing? Well, all of those questions would be answered in March of 2026. In March of this year, about 3 months ago now, and almost 3 years after Mineplex initially shut down, Samito would announce that he had sold the Mineplex branding and the original server assets. One of the new owners, James, would then almost immediately make an announcement that the server was under new ownership, aiming to jump straight into a new release. But hold on a second, what the hell happened? What happened to the revolutionary development studio Samito's Mineplex had been working on, and all the alphas and betas with game modes and minigames? Why now all of a sudden was the server changing ownership yet again? Well, I got in contact with Samito so he could give me the rundown, and here is what he said. First of all, to be clear, while the original Mineplex branding and server assets were sold, all of the Mineplex studio infrastructure that Samito had been developing was not, and he still owns and is working on that. What's changed is that it's no longer tied or related to Mineplex, but Samito is still working with YouTubers and content creators behind the scenes to create a proper hosting and development infrastructure for not only Minecraft but for other games too. So what he spent all these years developing is still ongoing. But as for why he sold the Mineplex branding and original server assets, well, this is where it gets interesting. Remember earlier in the video where we mentioned the Mineplex Bedrock partnered server and its importance to the business? Well, behind the scenes, Samito and his team had been struggling to communicate and work with Microsoft to get that server up and running again. He briefly mentioned this to me in an interview last year. Take a listen.
Long story short, to kind of run you through what's happened to us, obviously when the business shut down, we acquired it, and I met with Mojang about like a week or two after we bought the business. They forced us to go back through the process, and I asked about our marketplace assets, and I said, hey, like, what about our Compass login? Like, can we get any of this? And they said, oh, don't worry, you guys can get access to your business. And so we say, okay, like, we're gonna play ball, like, we got to do the right thing for our players. They want us to rebuild. We're gonna rebuild, okay? We hear nothing for months. This conversation happens in July, right? We don't hear back from our contact until I think November. Finally, after talking in November, got our formal meeting and introductory call with, you know, the same person that was there before, set up in March. Our March meeting comes around, it goes great. They say, okay, we're gonna schedule your play tests for early this summer. June goes by, crickets. July goes by, crickets, right? So we're emailing them, and I have the email chains of us requesting access to our assets. Finally, we hear from somebody in August after we've already committed the money and, you know, the time and everything to build per their request. We then get told that the people that we needed for the play test had gone on 2-month vacations on alternating months, and that we would be able to hear back in October. It comes to November now, and we hear nothing. It's like, yo, we've put all this time and energy, our players' resources into this. Like, we need to hear something here. Turns out a department shift had happened. A lot of things were all over the place. I can't tell you the exact things that were said to me there. What I can tell you is that it left us very confused. We were told something that really destroyed our faith in the process. We were very lost and confused based on what they told us for months, so we focused on really what we could do for our community in the here and now. So we finally email back again in April of this year, and I say, hey, we need a straight answer on this. And I was told that, hey, we'll get you in contact with this guy again this week. I'll talk and we'll figure it out. After that, crickets.
The general summary is that the Mineplex Bedrock server was almost ready to go, but Microsoft strung them along for years as they tried to organize a playtest and get the server back online so they could have a stable revenue source through that server. Microsoft's communication and organization was so poor that they never even got to a playtest stage. Asking him further about it now, he tells me that one of the main reasons he decided to sell the server was due to the issues with getting the Bedrock server back online and exhaustion from going back and forth with Mojang and Microsoft all this time. Alongside Alongside that, he mentions that the Bedrock server was Mineplex's biggest revenue source, responsible for 90% of the revenue that the server originally had prior to shutting down. Since that got cut off with Microsoft and Mojang failing to work with them to get it back online, their new side of the business was what was keeping them sustainable. He even mentions that the money from sales of Mineplex marketplace content that contributed to keeping the original business alive was being withheld by Microsoft and was never given to Sumito and his new team, despite Microsoft still keeping it listed on the marketplace and earning money from said sales. To this day, it seems Microsoft still never paid them. He mentions that himself as well as the ownership team did not take a single penny from the business personally, with every dime they made going right back into development, and that he sees the sale of the server's branding and old assets as a win-win, as he gets to focus on growing his other side of the business, mentioning the sale went smoothly and he wishes the new ownership the best. Overall, he also acknowledges that the biggest issue throughout development and with the betas was the business being pulled in two different directions, what the players wanted being the old server back, and what the business required, which was development of their infrastructure, which may be why there were players dissatisfied with the betas, who weren't interested in the business and infrastructure side of things at all. And to be clear, not all the players were upset either. The clans and champions game modes ran quite successfully throughout Mineplex's betas, now even running their own fully released server called Better PvP 2, so if you do want to play clans, be sure to check them out there. But overall, the mismatch was clear. Since the change in ownership was announced in March, now 3 months later, Mineplex, as of a week ago, has just reopened and officially released. The server is basically identical to how it was when it shut down, featuring all the old game modes, hub, similar cosmetics, and much more that made the original Mineplex once so famous. This has raised some concern, as since Mineplex shut down, the Minecraft multiplayer ecosystem has changed dramatically, and 1.8 PvP minigames aren't nearly as popular as they once were, with many minigame networks closing down or struggling to survive. That being said, the server is performing better than ever at the moment, seeing 11,000 peak players on release and still thousands of plays daily, even requiring a queue at first full of thousands of people as the server couldn't handle the demand. But will that all last, or will the server repeat its death cycle once the hype fades? Well, I got in contact with James, one of the new owners of the server, to ask him some questions about it and the server's future. For some context, the new owners were originally Mineplex players. They were very active on the server during its peak. James himself was even a server mod for a brief time, running competitive leagues for game modes such as Cake Wars. After Mineplex originally shut down, James would also run a server called Crits, which had recreations of Mineplex game modes like Champions and Cake Wars, running competitive events and tournaments on it.
So what made you guys, I guess, suddenly want to buy the Mineplex assets off of Sumito or get involved with it?
The first thing I would say is passion. We did genuinely love the server. It was our childhood. There was also, of course, business aspects to it. We genuinely believed they could succeed. We were definitely not expecting those numbers. We genuinely just had to limit the amount of people that could join because the network would have literally just crashed. We were kind of expecting more around the 2 to 5k range.
As mentioned, the server on launch day peaked at over 11,000 concurrent players, higher than almost all other Minecraft servers running right now, and since the past week has been maintaining a steady player count of 2 to 5,000 players daily, which is also insanely impressive. The amount of hype and interest that the team was able to generate in such a short period of time was immense, and even I am surprised at the number of players they are seeing, really going to show just how many people cherish Mineplex as a server overall. I next asked James about how he plans to continue promoting and advertising the server, since that was one of the big reasons the original Mineplex network died.
I would say that first of all, our own socials we took really seriously. I mentioned the figures of 16 million views on TikTok, 2 million accounts reached on Instagram. I don't have the YouTube analytics to date, but the We Bought Mineplex video had around 270,000 views or something. For that reason, we kind of decided to introduce a better rewarding creator program. Some of the creator codes go up to 50% revenue share to the creator, which hasn't really been done before as far as I'm aware. But yeah, it's mostly YouTubers and social media at the moment.
Just like the original Mineplex, James plans to primarily promote the server through content creators and social media. And to incentivize that in the modern Minecraft YouTube landscape where Let's Play style of content is no longer in fashion, they're offering YouTubers quite an insanely high revenue share through their codes. For example, if you are a content creator with over 100,000 following, such as myself, you will get 50% of all all revenue from purchases made using your code. So right now, if you guys go use my code EPIC and buy Mineplex's top lifetime rank, which costs $50, I will get $25 from that sale. This is an insanely high revenue share model. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before. Most other servers like Hypixel or games like Fortnite only offer a 5% revenue share. This is 10 times higher than that. I really have to drive home just how insane that is. And smaller creators get a very good revenue share too, far above industry norms. It's clear that the new Mineplex ownership really want content creators to make content and promote the server as they once did, and this revenue sharing model is a huge incentive for that. Make sure to use code EPIC if you do decide to buy anything on the server, by the way. I would much appreciate it.
Obviously, the server's minigames are using 1.8 combat. Would you say there are any plans to release game modes or other minigames with the modern combat instead?
Yeah, so on launch we only had legacy games pretty much. We were planning to have Line Strike, Block Hunt, Speed Builders on modern. We unfortunately had to disable them 30 minutes before launch because we were just like, these aren't ready. But we are definitely going to tap into modern combat with more modes in the future.
Would you say maybe there's potential for certain game modes such as, I don't know, Champions, where obviously it's primarily 1.8 combat? Would you say that in the future there could also exist not only the 1.8 version as it is now, but also a version on modern combat too?
Yeah, so we think that we will do that down the road.
Part of the reason why so many new minigame servers struggle and why Mineplex declined a lot in the first place was because they were on version 1.8 using 1.8 PvP, which has been significantly falling in popularity the past few years due to new players preferring newer combat present in newer versions and struggling to play 1.8 game modes with existing players who are so much better than them because they have been playing it for years. Mineplex prior to shutting down had this issue. For example, one of the server's most unique and popular game modes, Champions, a class-based PvP minigame with various abilities, had the issue where experienced players were so good it would make it next to impossible to learn as a new player, as you would be relentlessly destroyed and even spawn camped. While the server is currently on 1.8 as the original Mineplex was, and the server's game modes are therefore 1.8 PvP, there are plans to release modes on the newer versions of the game and even have modern combat equivalents of modes that already exist, which is a really good thing for the server's future.
Are there any plans for, I guess, more kind of persistent long style game modes, for example some sort of SMP or Skyblock?
Yeah, so we probably will tap into the SMP sort of route later this year, and we also would like to do some sort of MMO. We've been talking and kind of designing things a bit. It's definitely planned in the future, I just don't know when yet because it's still really early days. We're gonna do some sort of spin-off of Murder Mystery probably. That's probably a later thing.
So another thing that's important for the server's future is their continued development. While the hype and nostalgia are certainly there for Mineplex's old minigames currently, you can't run a server on just nostalgia alone. James clearly has plans to release new game modes and minigames of which even the original Mineplex never had, including an SMP, an MMO, and a murder mystery style minigame, a nice variety to appease a diversity of players. This is a good sign, as it means that Mineplex is going to try to innovate and adapt to the modern Minecraft multiplayer ecosystem, which the previous Mineplex failed to do.
The long-term plan is just kind of to keep pulling players in, keep them retained. We're just going to keep adding more content, introduce more modern content. Long term, we are probably going to shift into more modern stuff, more new stuff, kind of try and get back to being like innovative, like Mineplex once was.
After a slow 4 to 5 year long death and then a 3-year gap where the server went up and down and saw lots of changes, Mineplex is finally back to the active server and network it once became so famous for. The new ownership are clearly passionate players like much of the community who want to do everything in their power to keep it that way, and it seems like they have great future plans for the server. Make sure to check the new Mineplex out, there are still thousands of players online daily and it's great fun. Oh, and use code EPIC on the store if you do decide to buy anything. Be sure to subscribe, thank you all so much for watching.